Hello and welcome to A Star to Steer Her By, a Star Trek podcast. My name is Caitlin, and with me today are...
Jake.
Chris.
Ames.
And James.
And...
Yay!
James!
I'm here.
James is back. Always a pleasure to have you here, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
I'm sorry that... I guess I'm just sorry. It's a blanket apology.
I'm sorry this isn't a Garrick episode, because we usually have you on for Garrick episodes.
And are you also sad that I missed the baseball episode that I am sure all of you loved last week?
It was not universally agreed upon about the quality of the episode.
I liked it.
Interesting.
Bad.
All right, sorry, I won't need to bring up old
I'm not
battles.
saying it was
Five.
Just to clarify, I'm not saying I thought it was good. I'm saying I liked it. There is a difference. I like lots of schlock, to be fair. Speaking of schlock, this week, we're here to talk about 2 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Chrysalis, and Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. So, I don't know why I said it that way. Don't look at me like that.
Wasn't looking at you like anything.
Yeah, sure. I didn't see how you were looking at me. I just saw you turn to look at me when I said it, so I assumed it was bad.
Oh, but before we press on, what episode is this?
I have no idea.
Woo! Oh.
It's episode 223.
Whoa.
Oh, damn. This is an old... there's a lot of episodes of this show. It's a shame we probably have less listeners than episodes. Oh.
Fewer.
Fuck both of you. But yes, fewer, of course. Thank you. That's why our fewer than 223 listeners love this show. It's because we're all pedants. I think we should change the name of this podcast to Pedants the Podcast. So yes, up first on episode 223,
Woo!
we have to discuss Chrysalis.
Ugh.
And I knew this day was coming. I didn't think it would be this soon.
I didn't think it would be this bad.
I was pretty sure it would be this bad. Jack and the Whack Attack Squad are back.
Whoa, that's good.
Thank you. I do a little freestyling. I don't. No. But yeah, so Jack and Patrick and the horny one and Sarina, or what's her name? Lauren? Lauren? Yeah. Lorna. That's what I said. Lauren and Sarina are back, and Jack sure is again. It's great. But they turn up and they're in disguise, and Patrick is pretending to be like an admiral, and every time someone asks him a question, he says, "That's a stupid question." And that's how they got all the way to Deep Space Nine. He's just...
Pulling a real Jellico.
Yep, nailed it. He's doing great. And he looked really nice. But then they made him get out of the outfit because they're like, you really can't show up here looking all, impersonating Starfleet officers. So they were like, but good news, we have a slightly more flattering than your gray sweatshirt material outfit. We have this lovely orange velour jumpsuit for you. Does a great job emphasizing your bitch tits. Thanks for coming along. Poor seriously, again, as a fat person on this podcast, the way that they dress him outrages me so much. It's like awful. Anyway, this is the summary. We can talk about aesthetics later. So anyway, they show up and they're there because Julian, as usual, thinks he can fix everything in the world. So Sarina's there to have some special experimental surgery. And because what's going on, they find out, is that her brain has been genetically engineered to be working super duper fast, but the rest of her synapses aren't taking in stimulus fast enough for her to do the thing. So they're gonna put some nitro on the synapses so that she can keep pace. And the surgery works, of course, even though we have a false start and at first it doesn't look like it's gonna work, but it does. And we have a 3-hour improv doe a deer, a female deer.
Oh God! Call Vic.
Round. They did row your boat a few times, and suddenly Sarina went from sort of sounding like I don't know, sounding a little speech impediment-y, shall we? Jack makes fun of her, but they do a couple scales, and gosh, she can speak right as rain and clear and beautiful. And of course, Julian wants to fuck her immediately.
Yes,
and he starts like,
now I can fuck her.
And I said this straight up at the beginning, I was like, she's gonna feel like she owes him her life, so of course this is gonna turn into a romance, and it's gonna be awkward and disgusting and uncomfortable, and boy do I hate when I'm right. So he takes her on a group date, and she does really well, and there's a cute moment between Odo and Nerys that I really appreciated, and then... Julian's like, well, you're not a freak like those freaks over there, so you don't have to go back to the Institute. You can stay here with me. We're gonna bone down. I'm gonna take you to Ryza, because obviously as a woman who's never ever probably like spoken to other people before and interacted with other humans, you're definitely ready to go have a fuck fest on Ryza. So let's do that. That sounds great. But it doesn't sound great. Even O'Brien thinks it doesn't sound great. He's like, Julian, have you noticed that you fuck your patients a lot? And Julian's like, how dare you? I transferred her care to another doctor. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't make it better. Thankfully, even though Julian is going mad with horny power, Sarina withdraws and is like, I don't fucking think so. And ultimately is like, listen, I'd love to love you, I guess, but I don't know what love is because I literally just started living 72 hours ago in any real or serious way. So I'm gonna not do that. But thankfully, Sarina still doesn't have to go back to Crazy Town with the crazy crazies. She gets to go and have a job somewhere doing science or something, right? Didn't they mention that? Yeah, Julian got her a post somewhere. So that was pretty good, actually. She got the best of both worlds. She didn't have to fuck Julian, but she still got a swish position out of the deal. So
a swish position, you might say?
A swish position, exactly. And Jack, Lauren, and Patrick go back home to the Institute. We don't have, any farewells with them. They're just gone.
They're jettisoned.
Even though they seem pretty bummed out that Sarina is now normal, they even touch upon he can't do anything for us, which just makes me think of at the end of The Wizard of Oz when, Dorothy's all, I don't think the wizard has anything in that bag for me. That's basically what happens with the other three, but too bad. All's well that ends well, I guess.
Did it end well?
No,
did it start well?
Well, here's the thing. It did end well in that we didn't have to know that Julian and his most recent really uncomfortable, really inappropriate conquest were going to Ryza to have a gangbang. I think that it doesn't end with that possibility. Made me feel a little better, but the rest of it was awful.
Well, right before then is a scene that is, it's good that Julian understood that what he was doing was epically wrong. When Sarina basically says, I just want to know how to love you, but I don't know how because I'm new. And I was like, oh, no, honey, stop. And then he seems to realize, oh, shit, this was my doing. Which, good on you, Julian, but you should have not done this days ago. And not conquested the girl whose life you just turned entirely upside down. And I don't even know if it was her decision to let it go or not, because I think she was just like, oh, Julian saved me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, there was a lot of consent issues and a lot of is she even able to make this sort of decision on her own? Because again, she hasn't been in charge of her own care ever.
Who gave consent to this surgery?
Jack and the others.
Admiral Patrick, clearly.
What was her there was that caretaker woman, I think, that was responsible for all of their treatment and stuff. Quote unquote responsible for their treatment, not she was actually doing anything for these people.
Yeah, they mentioned that a doctor somebody had signed off on it, and I assumed it was supposed to be that woman from the first episode with these characters.
Well, wait, so there was a doctor that signed off on it, yet they still had to do this brave little toaster adventure to get to Deep Space Nine for the procedure.
Brave little toaster.
So I think it was one of those things where they got there, and then after things were put into motion, Bashir reached out and was like, "Hey, can I do this? Can I do this treatment?" And then she okayed it.
And the doctor was like, "Wait, you're telling me you might be able to turn one of those freaks normal and only have to deal with 3 of them?" Yeah.
Wait, it's the one that's compliant? Damn it. Space Jack.
Can't you fix Jack?
The doctor that he called was like, What do you mean? They're down in the day room right now with Nurse Ratched. What?
Goes down there, and there's just 4 paper mache dummies sitting at tables, like not moving, and they're like, "How did we miss this?"
And Jake, I think you mean Kai Wynn.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
My child.
It's just this episode just further muddied what anything to do with the genetically engineered in society is, because it's like, previously it was like, normally genetically engineered folks aren't allowed to kind of do whatever, but because this one has been deemed normal enough, they're like, okay. And I mean, I think we talked about this last time, but of the 4 of them, the only one where there's actually, it seems like, any real danger is Jack, because he can get randomly violent. Not that they remembered that this episode. He's just
and he would also be just as likely to create random violence and get himself punched in the face because he's so obnoxious.
That's not his fault, though. You don't lock someone away because they're punchable.
I understand, but I think it's as much for his protection as anyone else's.
Right, Again, in the first episode, is more implied like he was locked up because he might just get stabby. But like with Laura and Patrick, it's just like Laura's just horny, which isn't a crime, as proven by the existence of Julian. And
but she's a woman.
No,
okay,
I know.
Chris.
I know. I said the same thing.
Yeah, Chris made the same joke.
And Patrick is just super naive. Probably because he's been locked away in an institute his whole life.
What? No way would that be bad.
So something I only fully notice now, because, it's like I had to refresh my memory on things, so I've got like some articles up. But like, they don't even have last names.
Yeah, good point.
They're like, I figured maybe at least in the like extended information or whatever they would have had these last names, but no, even the Memory Alpha pages, it's just Jack, Lauren, and Patrick. Sarina has a last name; it's something else, but like
Douglas.
Well, because now she's a real person,
right? Exactly. So like, it's like no. I mean, like, that's what it feels like. I'm pretty sure she didn't have a last name in the first episode. She literally only gets a last name because they quote unquote fix her.
Do you think that her family like reclaimed her? Is that why? Like, were these all 4 of them just like, I don't even know, like the Santa Claus is coming to town where like they just got like wicker basketed onto like the stairs of an orphanage. Like nobody knows who they are except like their first names.
I mean,
I
think it was kind of I think it was intentional in some way in that, like, this is how the Federation has treated them. Like, they're not awarded full personhood because they're genetically modified. And
they're jammed in the fucking cargo bay.
That was strange.
Wait, but
Sarina, who gets a room now.
Yeah, but only because it's Julian's room. Feel like
no, she gets her own.
No,
room.
She had her own.
James, what were you saying though? I feel like you were winding up.
I feel like part of it is like, okay, they're not treated very well. But even when they start getting expanded on, I feel like the writers are also minimizing what they are and who they are.
Yeah.
And I think it does speak to like the writer's lack of empathy and sympathy with these topics. Like, I think Renee Echevarria, who wrote it, has a really awful quote about how, like, in Flowers for Algernon, like when the person like goes back to being like what they were and like has that like quote unquote regression in the story about like how he was basically just like, that's bullshit. Why should it end like that? Why can't you just fix people? And it's like, okay,
Dr. Eugenics. Calm
exactly.
down.
Exactly. And
I
like
actually
it's
also
a really ugly quote, which I can dig up, but
I was thinking of Flowers for Algernon as well, because I've read the book, I've seen the play, and I've seen the movie Charlie that's based on it.
And we saw the Nth Degree.
Oh, yeah.
The Barkley episode.
Is that another Star Trek episode?
Yeah, it's the TNG one where the aliens make Barkley super smart.
Oh, yeah, but Barkley lacks any of the purity and wholesomeness of Charlie, so I didn't think of Flowers for Algernon with him. That tarnishes the idea. But I thought the same thing, like, when she started to sort of, like, kind of, like, go into herself and, like, not speak, I was like, oh, no, they Flowers for Algernon her. Poor Sarina,
Yeah, but the first time she was just fucking with Julian.
Yeah, well, and the second time it turns out she was too, because she was just like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was
That's
more
pretty
severe.
good. Did she invent ghosting?
So they actually did an interesting fake out where like obviously the stereotypical plot for this would be Sarina has like, you know, her problems addressed, but then regresses and like goes back. And there are scenes like at the party where she gets overstimulated and like it seems like that is her regressing when in fact it's just it was a really loud party. Like I was at a really loud party today.
Reaction.
I also shut down after being at a really loud party.
Yeah. They would have had to pay royalties to the writer of Melora.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on. Let Jake go.
Sorry.
I say they would have had to pay royalties to the writer of Melora if they actually flowers for Algernon, because that was literally the plot of that episode.
Yeah, I was actually really expecting that too, because it was like, wow, this is exactly like Melora all over again. And it's even more inappropriate this time.
Yeah, Julian loves to make himself girlfriends out of existing girls by doing a surgery at them.
It's a little good.
I was going to say, you might as well change his name to Dr. Chris Martin.
Who?
I don't get it.
Oh.
Is that flowers for Algernon?
No, it's a Coldplay joke.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, did Chris Martin...
Very high class of you, Jake. Thank you.
Did Chris Martin build himself a girlfriend, or are you talking about Gwyneth Paltrow? Oh my God, is Gwyneth Paltrow a robot?
No, I'm talking about the song "Fix You" because that was a stretch. It worked in my head better than in real life.
Also, it's a really pretty song. I know it's kind of gross, but I love that song.
I think it's a good song.
Yeah, I love it.
I think it's a good song.
But yeah, so this episode
Coldplay gets a lot of hate. I don't know. I think they're all right.
Well, that's because Chris Martin was married to Gwyneth Paltrow.
That's
no,
true.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. I like Coldplay a lot, so I've seen them in concert.
But yeah, this episode is like, it's a little flowers for Algernon, it's a little Melora, there's like a scene they stole from Sleepers. It's all kinds of unoriginal.
You know what was really tight? You know what the best part of this episode was? When Ezri was like, you're an arrogant piece of shit like usual. You want me to... you're beating yourself up? You want me to help you? You want me to help you, Julian? You fucking arrogant jerk. Oh, let's talk about the fact that you're fucking your patient, you creep. I guess that hadn't happened yet. But I liked when Ezri... I'm sure that...
she was channeling a little Jadzia there.
A little bit. And also... Good. I'm glad that this Dax has just we don't have 5 seasons for her to get to the point of being able to tell him when he's being a little bitch, so we just episode 5 she's there. She's ready.
She remembered the time Jadzia did it on the plague planet.
Yeah.
So Ezri is still a terrible counselor though. So my question is, who's worse, her or Troy?
Well, she just isn't involved really. Like the whole time, there's at the beginning when they first kind of regains consciousness or whatever you want to say she's gotten. Ezri's kind of there and hanging out and advising, but then she fucks off for the rest of the episode, and Ezri just like never therapizes.
Yeah, you would think she would be involved.
Oh, Julian's got it.
No,
he's got it well in hand.
But to answer your question as to who is worse, I think in a way Ezri is worse, because we've already seen how great Dax can be, and now we sort of have a shadow of her. And normally I would say she's probably on par with Troy, maybe, but knowing that she's a shadow of her former self just makes her less good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that Ezri is not as good as counselor, because we've seen Troy at least help. So far, we've only seen Ezri flail and not know what to do next, and then blame herself, and then somehow turn the therapizing into a thing about her because she's uncomfortable.
I mean, she somehow accidentally helped Garrick. Like
that doesn't count. Garrick did most of the work.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't count because she was being like, let me push my problem onto you, and it just kind of like happened to work out that it was similar, but she wasn't really helping Garrick, she was helping herself, and he kind of got some of the, like, what do you call it, peripheral assistance, sort of.
I mean, I bet you she, more than anybody else, was very happy that this thing was working out, because it meant that at least for a couple of days, Julian wasn't sniffing her seats.
No, Christ.
No, it's true though. He's regressed big time, ever since, I don't know, the end of season 6, when it was like, oh, Worf and Jadzia are getting married. Suddenly we're really all up in Jadzia's shit again. Ugh.
Yeah, I really hated that at the end. It felt like the implication was that we should feel bad for Julian because he doesn't get a fuck puppet. And I feel good because it means Sarina gets to explore new things in her life. I mean, that's how you should be feeling, not, oh, look at Julian being sad that a girl is leaving.
Yeah, someone who he only knew for like 72 hours, only knew because he was performing medical procedures on her. Like, yeah, it's just so gross. It's like, we don't need more gross Julian, and this is just peak gross Julian. This is
super gross.
Yeah,
it's very upsetting. Like the idea of exploring his isolation from other people because of what was done to him could be good, but this wasn't the way to do it.
Well, but that isn't. I don't really feel like that's the isolation anyway. The isolation he was feeling is the same isolation that, like, any single person among married and not single friends might feel. Like, he feels isolated because he, like, suddenly Miles' wife is around, and because he, like, couldn't crash an obvious date for Kira and Odo.
Garrick should have been around.
That's true.
Decoding.
He's dating somebody else.
But that's what I mean. They tried to imply or talk about the fact that, like, some of his loneliness is due to this weird sort of separation from larger society.
Really?
Like,
that was the point?
That
I didn't get that at all.
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all. It was mostly just like, all my friends have boyfriends and girlfriends.
Well, yeah, but then he starts waxing poetic about how, like, you know, they can click on a level because they're both super smart and shit. And
the romantic angle is absolutely there, but that's a lacking in that there are never like non-sexual close relationships in these shows.
Yeah.
Like the closest we have is Julian and Miles. Like that is a incredibly close non-sexual relationship, and that's like the only one.
Cisco
all
and
the
Jadzia.
other ones that just paired off.
Cisco and Jadzia. Except in the mirror universe.
In the mirror universe,
no.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's just so rare that it winds up being whenever you want to show someone being lonely, it's always against other people and their romantic partners.
Mm.
Yeah, like it should have just been, I don't know what it should have been, but again, the idea of him exploring his sense of isolation would have been interesting. Because, I mean, previously when he felt this way, he couldn't talk about it because no one knew his deep, dark secret. But now that it's out in the open, you know, again, yeah, if they had found a better way to explore it could have been an interesting idea.
Also, they have a counselor on the ship now.
Do they?
I'm told. Allegedly.
I mean, you shouldn't be, like, friends with your therapist, though. That kind
That's
of...
He
true.
wants to bang her. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, plus he wants to fuck his therapist, so he'd have the same problems, except even worse there.
Yeah, and plus that would be an extra shade of weirdness, because he's like, I wanted to bang Jadzia, and she's like, I know.
She was into it, by the way. Wink.
Gross. Fucking Star Trek sometimes.
You were second choice. Wink.
Speaking of second choices, like, the episode really didn't know what to do with the other three once the plot got going. It was like, they were like, if we're going to have her, we have to have the other three, but they didn't actually know what to do with them.
I don't know, it seems to me they knew exactly what to do with them. They were going to send them on this, the world is going to start collapsing in on itself in 60 to 70 trillion years. I was waiting for that to happen.
I actually did kind of like that wound up happening, where, like, basically their entire subplot is them realizing that, oh my god, entropy will destroy the universe in many trillions of years. We have to solve this. And,
Jack,
like, they come up with a solution that involves, like, a ridiculous amount of subspace generators. But
Jack finally read Arcadia, apparently.
But again, you know, this is also these interesting characters that deserve some respect being disrespected by, like, you know, not being given last names. We don't get to say goodbye to them, and we never see them again. They literally disappear off screen.
Each of them literally has one personality quirk, and that's all they have. Lauren is nothing but slutty. Oh, Jack has two. What are the two?
The one is, you know,
so
creepy, weird, and ha ha ha. And then the second one does running, jumping somersaults over things.
Yes.
That's true. That was a bad cut, too.
Nobody showed him the Matrix.
Yeah,
he's just physically angsty. That's all.
That was very obviously a stunt double.
You know what else was obviously a stunt double was he was the only one whom they had to dub for the song. And
what song was it? What song was that?
Do re mi fa sol la ti do.
Do re mi fa sol la ti do.
Re mi fa sol.
Do re
15 minutes of song.
Do re mi
God
fa.
damn it.
She can talk.
Do re mi.
She can talk. She can talk. She can talk. She can talk. She can talk.
See, I didn't notice that because I was too busy.
I heard it right away. I was like, "Ooh, that's not right. That's not."
I was too busy noticing
he was dubbed.
How badly they fucked up the Foley when
Bashir clapped
was applauding
that first time.
Oh shit!
It is not even remotely in sync. like he's like, it's like his hands go together. 3 seconds later, you hear the clap.
Oh no!
It is so fucking Baby Town frolics.
Yeah. So how long was that scene? That was a very long song.
Oh my God!
I think
25 minutes.
I read the 2 minutes, but that's still.
That's too long for
way
that.
Too much.
Very long.
It would have been too much if they had just done 3 sets of scales. But then they were like, oh,
let's do a round.
Do, re, mi.
Do, mi.
Fucking
That bitch was
Renee
hitting high notes and shit. It was amazing.
Yeah. And fucking Renee Echevarria says, that is one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Trek.
That guy, man.
Who is this man?
Renee,
he needs to be
man. Jesus
shot
Christ.
out of a cannon.
I think
I found myself praying for Vic to walk in.
No! Wow! That would all
He was like, hey, swing it, baby.
At least there'd be words.
Ray me.
Like,
that would have been amazing.
Could they not get the rights to the rain in Spain? Because it feels like that's what they wanted that scene
By
to be.
George, I think she's got
Like,
it.
that's what it's supposed to be, basically, you know?
You're right. I hate it. And I was kind of bummed because I literally, like, right before that scene happened, I was remarking, I was like, wow, she is doing, as an actress, a really good job of sounding like someone who has never heard herself really talk before.
Yeah. I
I was like, this is great. And then it was...
Jack had to come in and shit on her and be like,
oh, you talk like a fucking idiot. Let's sing a song about it. Fucking Jack.
God, I hate him
Jack
so much.
Ass.
I hate him
Am
too.
I right?
That's his last name. His last name is Ass.
They've given him a last name.
Congratulations, Jack. You're a full man. You're a real boy.
So something I definitely didn't realize at the time in Sarina's actress, and I don't think we mentioned it the first episode, Faith Saley is like a regular on Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's a genius. She's really fucking smart.
Yeah, she's smart and like incredibly funny. And like I saw the name and I was like, that's really familiar. Why is that familiar? I was like, oh my God. Like I've heard her on the radio dozens and dozens of times.
Oh, that's cool. I remarked to Chris that, at least when she got her whole family together this time, they actually got to see her speak. So that must have been a plus for her. Unlike last time where she was like, here comes my big scene, and they cut all my dialogue.
Yeah, what's absolutely a thing that happened this episode, because of course it did, was they basically, because they cut her line in the previous episode, and because that means they didn't know what it would really sound like when she talks in this episode, she basically had to re-audition for a role she already had.
Oh my God, that's bullshit.
Luckily, she's
ridiculous.
good, so it was fine. But still, it's such a strange thing that she had to come in and re-audition since she hadn't had any lines previously.
Like, I just feel like it would have been more distracting to have a whole new actor.
Oh, they do that all the time.
I know, and it's distracting.
I know, but if the other three were the same...
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't think I would have noticed that she had changed as long as the other three were all the same person.
Yeah, it's like Aldo at least has the benefit of being under a shitload of makeup. This would have been as distracting as like the time Kirstie Alley turned into Robin Curtis.
Well, unless they got a better actress, and then it wouldn't have been at least quite so bad.
Well, Robin Curtis may be the worst actress, but she's not a conspiracy theory Trumpist, so I like her better now.
Fine.
She wins.
They just need to go back and like digitally replace Kirstie Alley with her.
With Tig Notaro?
But just keep Kirstie Alley's voice.
No, replace her with Tig Notaro.
Tig Notaro. Can we replace me with Tig Notaro, please?
I can't imagine Tig Notaro as a Vulcan.
Yeah, no, there's too much snark.
Ooh,
On the one hand, James, I love the idea, but I don't want to replace you with Tig Notaro.
I know,
Me,
but
on the other
it would still be
hand.
an improvement.
Why are we specifically
and I'm not
replacing
knocking
Percy
myself.
with Tig?
Oh, Tig
because,
Notaro is in a... Go ahead.
So, Army of the Dead, after they finished filming, one of the cast, some guy whose name escapes me, was accused of some pretty heinous sexual shit. So, they digitally removed him from the whole movie, put Tig Notaro in a room with a green screen, and digitally pasted her where he had been. Like, she literally never actually met her co-stars for this movie because she filmed her part ages later in a studio.
And all the pictures make her look awesome.
Oh yeah,
seeing the advertisements for that, I was like, oh, and there goes my bisexuality taking a hard gay turn.
Like, I have no interest in the film because, one, it's a zombie movie, and I'm not into zombie movies, and it's a Zack Snyder zombie movie, but every photo of Tig Notaro from it is fucking amazing.
What is with fucking Zack Snyder movies and replacing things in post with CG? Because didn't they do the same thing with a mustache?
No, that was... So that would happen. So what happened was...
But it's not CG. It's a real Tig Notaro.
When they...
She's the other guy is a mustache.
When Snyder either quit or was fired from... Either way, when he left Justice League initially...
Snyder left for family reasons, basically.
Yeah. And then they replaced him with scumbag Joss Whedon. And they needed to do some reshoots. And by then, Henry Cavill had grown a mustache for a different movie.
Mission Impossible. Yeah.
And Paramount was petty about it and wouldn't let him shave it. So they had to digitally remove his mustache from all the scenes he reshot. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
Everything about that fucking movie was a nightmare.
It's not Zack Snyder at all.
Yeah, no, the first time
Zack Snyder did do a whole bunch of film compositing for the Justice League reshoots, however.
Yeah,
so he has a lot of experience doing that kind of work.
Yeah.
I will give my 5-second Army of the Dead review. I really liked it. Zack Snyder, when he's not trying to be serious, can actually be fun, and that's way better than when he does any of the DC superhero stuff, because for some reason, he treats zombies fun and superheroes real serious.
Did you just call him Snack Snyder? Because
maybe, I hope I did.
That's what I'm going to call him from now on. Good old Zack the Snack Snyder over here.
Snyder.
Speaking of replacing things that are sexual predators, they had to reshoot the kiss between Julian and Sarina because Bashir looked too predatory.
I thought because she literally threw up into his mouth.
That's what I thought she was gonna say. Actually, I literally was like, and they barfed. Okay. So yeah. I'm glad that, like, on the one hand, they were able to distinguish one moment when Julian looked like a predator, and I applaud them for that. But, like, the entire episode, Julian looked like not a pedophile, sorry, a predator. So, well, kind of.
She does seem to be a lot younger than him.
It's not just that, it's that
she's mentally fresh, yeah.
Right. She's spent her whole life in an institute and literally not speaking, interacting with other humans.
Well, so there is some, like, it's like, great. So regardless of everything, she, like, right after that kind of surgery, you are incredibly vulnerable. That is not an okay time to pursue a person.
Absolutely right.
But part of my issue with it is the whole thing is like, this is quote unquote fixing her. But she has a relationship and interactions with the 3 other characters.
She used to be in love with Jack, and we've got that.
Jack, Sarina, and Patrick. Like, they talk to her, and there is a communication there. Like, they're not like, they don't seem to just be making up responses. Like, they're kind of like, no, Sarina came up with that. Like, you can't understand her, but we who have been friends with her for decades can. So she actually does have an ability, like, there is an inner life there that's but that like they flip-flop in how they discuss it, because like the characters interact with her and genuinely do it, but then Julian's also kind of like, it's like, well, she's never had any interaction with anybody ever. It's like it's very like at odds.
It's like this episode, they just kind of rewrote the character, because as I said last time we discussed her character, she's not one. In this episode, they decided, okay, whitewash or just white paint over all of that. We're going to start over. She can't talk at all, and no one's ever talked to her in her fucking life. She can't respond and communicate with people. Let's fix that. and then build a character around it.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because this is sort of how people, like, on the autism spectrum sort of get painted sometimes if they're not able to communicate the way we want them to. And it has a lot to do with overstimulation. Like, that's kind of the whole thing about people on the spectrum, is that they basically is, and not all people, I'm not speaking generally, but what I've heard from people is it's like the volume is up on the television at like 99 all the time, and you can't turn it down. So you're being constantly bombarded by stimulus from all sides, and that's why it's difficult. I actually had the pleasure of working with someone who wasn't able to speak on his own. He had communication aids, but he was brilliantly intelligent, and if it weren't for people working with him and finding the way that he could communicate, they might never have known. But it's like this idea that, you know, oh, well, if you can't talk, then you're obviously not thinking. But in reality, there are ways that you can find to communicate with folks just because it's not what you're used to, you know?
Yeah. So that's the biggest problem I feel with this episode. Because like, so, you know, as someone who has like, you know, some autistic friends who have had experiences like this, and I think it was accidental, but like it appears to be a pretty good representation, explanation of, you know, certain, you know, autism symptoms and like, you know, characteristics. And like, there's like, you don't need to fix somebody necessarily. There's things that like you can work with and alleviate like some of the frustration and like the harder parts of it, but like they don't need to be fixed in order to fit into what society says is someone of value. Because that's ultimately what this episode wound up doing, is that Sarina wasn't a worthwhile person and wasn't a worthwhile thing to exist until she was fixed. When, as you said, like Sarina is someone that like absolutely with communication aids you could have gotten there, you know? Yeah. It's literally like there's almost no difference between like what Sarina was going through and Hawking. Like, you know, if it weren't for the communication aids, you wouldn't be able to communicate with Stephen Hawking, one of the most brilliant people of our generation.
Yeah.
Well, previous generation of our lifetime, you know? And it basically says, it's the way the episode presents it is that, you know, what would have been way, 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 way better is if you could have just fixed him. And that's not a great attitude.
No, there's something very dystopian about how the Federation treats the different.
Yeah.
Also, you know, to my mind, like a better thing to do, you know, all right, so you're all better now by our metrics, so we're gonna send you out to be a scientist, I guess. You know, never mind that this has been your family for however long. Like, you think if anything, you keep her with them, and now that she'd actually get like a modicum of respect from the rest of the world, she could be their advocate more, you know?
Right. Well, they don't want anyone to advocate for these people. I'm saying the way that the genetically augmented were portrayed in the first episode is they were basically in the Institute because they were modified, not because things went wrong. It just seems to be that things going wrong is the norm when it comes to people being genetically augmented, particularly to this degree. And so at the end, they're just kind of like, oh, Sarina's normal? Whatever, this genetically modified person, super illegal, and we're literally terrified of them. Yeah, she can just do whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's whatever they were going for with these episodes, that is what the interpretation becomes. And it really does add a very sinister layer to everything.
I don't know. I still want Jack spaced.
I will say, so my last thing personally, this is the quote from earlier that I had mentioned, where it was, so I guess there was discussions about how it ended. Like the original ending was going to be was actually going to have Jack, and Jack was going to revert to the previous aspects. And there was some issues in the writer room. And according to Echevarria, it boiled down to the fact that it was a tragedy that this guy becomes normal, which kind of glamorizes mental illness. That's a very common sort of Hollywood story. Oh, aren't they cute? Don't rob them of their originality and make them normal, which is bull, which is just a really gross quote.
Yeah, that's pretty rotten. Also, I think if it had been Jack, the makeout scenes would have been a lot
Hotter.
better, probably.
It would have been too progressive for Paramount.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're sitting around the writers room like, okay, so we're gonna make, so we're gonna have Julian fix Jack, make Jack a normal person. How do they fuck? How do we get them to fuck? And Berman walked in and said, nope.
Well, he walked in first and only heard the end of it, and he was like, 2 of our characters are going to be doing it, huh? You're like, Jack
were
and
those
Bashir.
2 characters now, and since that didn't work out, were the 2 characters going to be Lauren and Nog?
Oh, God.
That was,
That's right. I forgot about that. That was so creepy. I have no problem with like sexually liberated Lauren, who's just brilliant and also likes to have sex. That's cool, whatever. But like her weird fixation on Nog, who's like, isn't he like supposed to only be like 17 or something at this point? Is he even 18?
No, he's probably like 20 or so, right? He and Jake are of an age, right?
Plus he's a Ferengi, so we don't know how they age.
Here's the thing, it would have been better if they'd had some scenes together and maybe he was into it,
Yeah.
Watch Nog go on some dates and be awkward.
That would have been. Oh my God! Can you see? It would have been nice if in the B plot they had maybe treated the other 3 like actual characters. Like that would have been pretty fun. Like
you totally could have done. It could have been like he goes to Jake and he's like, Jake, I have a date, and the last time I went on a date with a human, I fucking blew it because I'm a Ferengi. I need you to help, but this time I'll listen.
Yeah, but this time Lauren's totally into everything that he wants because Lauren will do whatever for sex.
It would be awesome if like Nog was like, I gotta go on this date, but we don't know who the date is with until like the end of the episode, and it turns out it's with Lauren.
I would have loved to have seen that.
No, the very end of the episode is like where did Jack and company go? Oh, well, they left on the last transport, and Julian goes back to sick bay, and he's getting everything together, and Nog kind of like stumbles in, and
his headdress thing is on backwards.
His headdress thing's on backwards. He's got a broken pelvis and just.
Do you want me to fix that? No. Do you want me to fix that? It's like, no, the pain is giving me happy memories.
I'm never washing this pelvis again.
His ears are just bright red and bleeding.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Oh, God. Speaking of ears, we learned something fascinating about ears in the next one.
Was that a segue?
Oh, maybe.
Is that a segue you were trying to do?
Segwish to me.
Are you guys ready to segue into the next episode?
Let's seg it up.
All right, Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. So we'll just get the B plot out of the way real quick. So the Great River part is that Sisko is away, and while Sisko's away, he needs O'Brien to get, I don't know, self-sealing stem bolts. He needs something, and he needs it by the time he gets back, and he better get it. The problem is that item is back-ordered on Amazon, so they decide to go the old-fashioned route, and they send Nog out, and Nog makes friends, and sets up all kinds of trades, and he's able to get, what they need. By doing it, though, he pisses off everybody of any note that can kick his and or Smiley O'Brien's ass on Deep Space Nine. He first steals Sisko's desk, which pisses off Nerys. Then he steals a whole shitload of blood wine, which, pisses off everybody. The entire Klingon Empire is up in arms, but mostly Martok and Worf, because, Martok was going to share with him. But at the end of the day, even though everyone's threatening to kill O'Brien, Nog manages to get the item that they needed, and Sisko's desk back, and the blood wine. It's not the exact blood wine, it's an even better vintage. So everybody gets what they want, and O'Brien doesn't die. So
Keiko
really,
will get him later.
A better week for Miles O'Brien, just in general. And Nog is adorable and gives us lots and lots of good Nog laughs, which are my favorites. So that's like the B plot, and it's really cute and fun. And without being...
I have thoughts for later.
Sometimes I just feel like
fun.
They're really tonally shitty and awful, and this one I felt like was alright. So meanwhile, though, the real meat of the episode is that Odo gets a transmission that his Cardassian deep throat buddy is trying to reach out to him to give him some more state secrets. And Odo's like, I don't know, he allegedly died. It's probably a trap. And Kira's like, yep, probably a trap. Definitely a trap. Want me to go with you? No, he told me to come alone. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, absolutely a trap. So Odo turns up by himself at the creepy, beautiful eye lighting cave where he and Deep Throat hang out on Cardassia. And wouldn't you know it, his buddy doesn't show up, but Weyoun shows up, but it's not our Weyoun, or at least it's not the Weyoun we know. Apparently the Weyoun we know died a month ago in a transporter accident.
Or was it?
Accident.
Well, no, it wasn't an accident. Damar did it, absolutely. But
excellent.
And they're working on that. But that said, this is actually Weyoun number 6, and Weyoun number 6 is, according to Weyoun number 7, what? A reject or defective. All the way down. All the way down, it's Weyoun's. And he's like, well, I told you it was this other guy because I really needed to see you, but I want to defect from the Dominion. Let's go right now. And Odo's like, okay. So they take off back to Deep Space Nine, but they're soon contacted by Weyoun 7 and Damar. And at first I was like, oh no, is he a shapeshifter? Because I had kind of thought, like, is this just Lady Shapeshifter, like, fucking with him? Nope, it was in fact a actual official trademarked Weyoun clone, but again, a broken one. Well, quote unquote broken. I actually think he gives us some interesting information. He's like, yeah, the war was supposed to be over months ago. Like, we also find out that the shapeshifters are sick. There's an illness spreading through the link. And luckily for Odo, since he's not sticking his dick in that link anymore, he is not sick. But it sounds like everybody else is. So we play a game of like cat and mouse, hide and seek, whatever you want to call it, with several Jem'Hadar ships, because Damar and Weyoun 7 decide, like, well, Odo's not really a founder. I mean, he is, but he doesn't consider himself a founder. And if he doesn't consider himself a founder, why should we? And we don't have to tell the Jem'Hadar that there's a founder on that ship. We'll just shoot him down. It'll be fine. Or, if that doesn't work, Weyoun 6, if you want to just go ahead and activate your cyanide capsule that's built in at the base of your brain and kill yourself, we'll let him go. We'll let Odo go then, but, otherwise we're just gonna kill you. And they actually managed to get away from the first Jem'Hadar ship because Weyoun gives Odo the secret to destroying the fuck out of their ships really easily, which, if we get nothing else from this episode in terms of intelligence from the other side, I would say that's a pretty good one. Shoot at the dorsal, whatever the fuck, it'll blow up the ship. Pretty good. They wind up playing hide and seek in a Kuiper belt full of asteroids and ice, and ultimately, though, they are found, and Weyoun 6 sacrifices his life to save Odo, and at the end is like begging Odo for his blessing, and Odo begrudgingly grants his blessing to Weyoun 6, who dies happily in his arms, believing all's right in the world with him and his gods. And then Odo and Nerys discuss it at home, and Nerys is like, actually, that's pretty cool for that guy. I feel like that's the perfect way to go if you gotta go. End.
Embraced by Odo.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I want to go.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good one.
I think that was basically it. Yeah, it was definitely I liked this episode.
Yeah, it had lots of Jeffrey Combs, which I like.
Oh yeah, double the Jeffrey Combs.
I'm going to start by saying the issues. I have some issues with the B story.
Okay.
The first and possibly main issue I have with the B story is that they've done this twice already. This whole Milo Minder Binder Nog running around gathering things for people and pulling deals.
Doing side quests.
Because they did that in Progress when they got the self-stealing stem bolts and all the other things. And they did that in the cards when they got all those things to get the baseball cards. So it's like, we're doing the same thing we've done.
That's right.
And and there's nothing new about it. And it also got to the point in this episode where it was getting so repetitive. It wasn't building, it was just repeating. Up, another thing. Up, check Miles's log. It was Miles's signature. Oh, Nog. Like, I swear 3 times.
So, so I think that's absolutely right, absolutely valid. I think that this version of it is a better example than the earlier episode with the self-stealing stem bolts, and it's kind of unfortunate that this is a rehash instead of like the original way that like the material continuum is kind of explained and explored, because I think this explores it better and it's more fun. Although it not only is it kind of steady repetitive in this episode, it is also a rehash, and those two combined is really unfortunate.
Yeah, I also think the self-stealing stem bolts. I felt like that episode, it built, like every time they did a new thing, it was like more and more like emotion put into, okay, well, what's the next thing? There's another thing. Oh God, this time it just felt like, and then we do it again.
True,
and then we do it again.
And in the original episode, the stakes were literally bigger each time because they kept getting these like ridiculous deals until they had like 10,000 acres of land.
Yeah. In this one, though, I don't know. I think the difference for me is that this one was not a Nog has an adventure story. It was a O'Brien gets tortured story.
True.
Which, neither of which are an original thing, but I like the fact that, it was the same plot, but told from O'Brien's perspective as a victim of this thing.
I loved the quote where it was O'Brien and Nog talking, and like the dialogue is real snappy and instant, where O'Brien says, "Don't do anything I wouldn't do," and Nog says, "Chief, I can't operate under those kinds of restrictions." Yeah. And he doesn't say it as a joke. He's just like literally like, I have to do things you wouldn't do, or this isn't going to happen.
It is interesting to see him do Ferengi stuff in the line of duty this time.
I did like that.
Yeah,
that's the difference. It's interesting, I didn't think about this, Ames, but Milo Minderbinder is a perfect comparison. And clearly there is no Starfleet version of that character. Because who is
Milo? Who's that?
He is a supply chain guy in Catch-22.
Yeah, we discussed him when we discussed the stem bolt episode.
Did we? I'd forgotten. But yeah, now that he's Starfleet, it's even more apt. And I do like the idea that he sort of becomes the Starfleet wheeler. He'd be a great quartermaster. He could probably get shit moving along, It's a problem, people.
I do think it's kind of funny that like O'Brien apparently has literally never heard of the idea of get on the good side of the person who's in charge of your materials. Like
O'Brien can't get on people's good side.
He could at least try. I don't know. Like
he didn't even want to admit that he and Julian were best friends in the last episode. He's not a...
I mean, I think it makes sense they kind of justify it as he doesn't have the time to schmooze with some guy who doesn't even work on his station.
That's
true. They keep him very busy.
Yeah, Space Nine is constantly about to explode.
It's always on fire.
So, that, I guess, makes enough sense. The idea that's, Nog can be like, let me handle the schmoozing.
Yeah. Yeah, and he would be really good at it.
Yeah.
I also think it was funny that, apparently they never change authorization codes, because at the very beginning, O'Brien gives Nog authorization codes. O'Brien gets in trouble once, and he's like, oh, I really shouldn't have given him my codes, because apparently those are his codes for the rest of his life. Now Nog can just say O'Brien's doing stuff for the rest of eternity, because those codes are never changing.
Well, O'Brien never. It's like that guy who was like, I'm going to post my social security number on the internet because I know you can't steal it. And it was like, LOL, Nog's here. Sorry.
It was even better. That guy was the president of a security company that was supposed to be able to secure your identity. And he was like, see, you won't be able to do it. And then his identity was stolen the next day.
8 seconds later.
Several times, I think.
Hugh Jackman was on the case, hacking in.
I suppose we should round out the B plot if there's anything else to say about it.
I loved the little tiny desk that O'Brien was going to replace Cisco's with.
Yeah, so there was a weird guy who likes to have pictures of him behind the desks of famous captains, and so he sneaks into captains' rooms to take selfies at Picard's desk and stuff.
Feels like that weird collector guy, doesn't it? Kind of. Who wanted to have data.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that. Weird
I guess in a post-scarcity world, literally these are the only things of value, are the things that people just want for whatever reason that have a sentimental attachment to it. So in a post-scarcity world, that is something you could actually use for trade.
That or Bob's mustache from Bob's Burgers. I collect trophies. Oh, that's pathetic.
Just making Bob's Burgers references.
Yep.
Oh, the other thing the B plot came up with that is terrifying for me is that apparently Ferengi ears molt off.
Oh yeah, that was my segue. That's horrifying.
Yeah, because he says something like, "Oh, we learn about the Great Continuum while we still have our first pair of ears."
Well, and so my question was, is it like baby teeth, where a bigger pair of ears grows out and pushes off those ears? Or, because if you look at the Ferengi ear, you can almost distinguish where there's like another set of lobes in there.
Like so the rings of a tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like, but seriously, like, I don't know, right? Like, with humans, the only two things in your body that keep growing are like your nose and your ears. So, and the Nagus has big fucking huge droopy old man lobes, so maybe that is how it works.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think it's like antlers where they just flop off and then new ones grow in the spring.
I kind of want to imagine that the ears fall off and like parents keep them.
Oh,
like,
God.
Like, oh, this is my little baby's
fairy.
first set of ears.
Oh, gross. They put them into scrapbooks or bronze them or something.
You know Moogie has all of Rom's ears bronze.
People put them into, remember a few years ago when, like, I don't even know what it was, like, literally, like, cells from, like, circumcisions were being put into some face cream or other that like celebrities were super into.
Dear
is it
God.
like that? Is it like Ferengi goop? They put ears, baby ears into, or maybe it's like what the fuck is Saru? What's his?
Oh, his ganglia.
He's a Kelpian.
Kelpian, yeah. Maybe it's like Kelpian ganglia. It just makes really good soup. You have shark fin soup, you got Kelpian ganglion soup, you got Ferengi baby lobe soup. It'd be a delicacy.
Gross.
Sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
Everyone's welcome.
That's a line I could have lived without.
Sorry.
No, I mean, just, you didn't write the line.
Which one?
About the ears.
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. But, yeah. I prefer my idea that it's like the rings of trees rather than just flopping off. Because if it's like baby teeth, what if you only lose one? What if you've got only one big ear or a small ear?
I had baby teeth that were stuck in, so they would just surgically remove the ears. Like my teeth were removed. I also had two extra teeth up in the top of my mouth, so I had additional teeth and I had baby teeth that weren't moving. So I had
like a shark. Jesus.
I had 8 teeth pulled in one sitting.
Yeah, dude, the thing about the human skull is horrifying because you're born with your adult teeth already up there. So if you're a kid and you have an x-ray done, it's just, again, teeth all the way fucking down because there's the big teeth are already down there just waiting to spring up. It's horrifying.
Yeah, I know
people
used to get upset, I know, when, like, I feel like when they used to, if their baby or their young child-shaped thing sadly died and had to be cremated, and they'd come back with a thing of ashes full of adult teeth, they'd be like, this isn't my baby, and they'd be like, but wait, oh, this is uncomfortable. All of this is uncomfortable.
Ooh, that is uncomfortable. Yikes.
Well, now they pulverize cremains so that you can't find teeth in them because that was just disturbing in general.
But also, why were people poking through the remains? Put it in an urn like a normal person. Don't be moving around in it. Well, I guess if you go scatter them and you scatter a bunch of teeth, that'd be fucked up.
That'd be so bad. That would really ruin a moment.
Yes, it would. Good.
Cool.
Well, I'm glad they don't do that shit
Speaking of
anymore.
remains, what do you suppose they do with ex-Weyouns?
Soup.
With the ganglia.
They probably, like, turn them into a slurry and feed them to the newly born Weyoun.
Yeah, the other Weyouns to grant them power.
If they have the body.
So I wonder how... So in the last, 4 years, there have been 4 Weyouns now. Because there was Weyoun 4, who was the one that was killed by the Jem'Hadar. There was Weyoun 5, who we saw through most of Deep Space Nine. And now we have Weyoun 6 and 7. Mm-hmm. So I wonder how old the Weyoun line is that we only got to 4. And then we've what is the typical lifespan of a Weyoun? Like clearly at this point, it's like
it's the average is going down fast.
Well, right. Yeah, but I wonder
Number 6 was not alive long.
Like prior to meeting Benjamin Sisko, the Weyouns could have had long-lived we don't know how long a Vorta lives naturally, but
Right.
I feel like it's probably... Yeah, I feel like it's probably, like, they come out as an adult, probably, like, equivalent of a 20-year-old. They probably got another 60 to 80 years after that. They're not used to going through Weyouns this fast.
I wouldn't be surprised if they lived even longer, if only because, one, they're genetically engineered, and two, like, the way Weyoun talks about himself, they are a long and well-respected line.
There hasn't been a defect, the Weyoun line hasn't had a defective clone.
So I feel like Weyoun's 1 through 3, at least, probably got to live out whatever the natural lifespan is for a Vorta, and it's probably kind of decent.
Well, and the Dominion has apparently not had to put up much of a fight with anybody else except these very tenacious human beings.
Yeah,
And
that's true. Yeah, no one was challenging them in the Gamma Quadrant, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, it's like, needless to say, it took the Alpha Quadrant kind of getting together, being like, all right, fine.
That's what it is. The female changeling just has such a soft spot for Weyoun that when she found out that Weyoun 4 got killed on a joint mission with Ben Sisko, she swore revenge on all the Alpha Quadrant.
I know I would have.
I mean, she
love
fucking
Weyoun.
trusts the Weyouns well enough to tell them that they're dying. Which you think that's the thing you'd keep under wraps?
Well, it was pretty clear.
I was going to say she wasn't doing a great job hiding
she wasn't
it,
looking
she?
great.
Yeah, did she tell him or did he figure it out?
No, he said she outright told him.
Oh, okay.
I mean, at the very least... Go on.
No.
Well, what she could have done, though, was been like, I'm not well. Not been like, the whole Great Link is dying. Like, Jesus, why you think you try to keep that under wraps? But again, they must really trust the Weyouns.
Had
I was
some
gonna say.
bad Yarmok sauce.
So one thing I really like about this episode is that it kind of goes into like the rules of the Dominion and like the Jem'Hadar and the Weyouns, and it's kind of interesting. It reminds me a little bit of like the iRobot stories, where Asimov would kind of go into like, okay, you've got these rules, and then all of the stories are about how that breaks down and how like conflict arises from that. And a lot of this episode is kind of dealing with that, where Weyoun 6 defects because he decides that Odo is the founders, and the Weyoun directives are, you are wholly subservient to the gods, the founders. And if they're getting sick, then that means that they're going to die. So Odo is the continuation of the founders. He's the true founders. Yeah. And you have Weyoun 7, who has, well, thanks to Damar, goes the opposite way, where he decides, Odo has rejected being a founder, therefore he no longer is a founder, so we can do whatever we want to him. It's no longer against my programming to kill Odo because he is not a founder.
Yeah. Until Damar throws him down an elevator shaft.
Right. Well, I also love how, like, when they're talking about it, Weyoun is like, okay, I'm on board, but the Jem'Hadar, who are even more programmed, will not fire on the ship if they know that Odo is on it. And he's like, well, that idea is out the window. And Damar looks at him and says, like, well, do the Jem'Hadar have to know he's on the ship? And Weyoun's like, holy shit, you're right, we could lie. I totally forgot about that. Because for whatever reason, like, the Weyouns don't really lie about anything.
They don't have to.
Right.
They don't know how. Yeah,
it's like usually they just roll up on a place and they're like, we're going to take you over, so you can either fight right now or you can roll over. And so there's never any reason for him to lie about that, because he always comes from such a place of certainty and like determination. So it was interesting that he needed Damar to tell him that, like, lying is a thing, right?
Well, and also, like, it was probably a good place to start if this was going to be his first lie, because it's a lie by omission, which is a little easier than outright lying. You just don't tell the Jem'Hadar what's on the ship. So I
imagine extreme honesty could also just be part of their engineering, so they can't lie to the bosses.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because you really don't want them to be able to hide anything from you.
It sucks to be a Vorta. No sense of aesthetics, shitty sense of taste, bad vision. All you have is a good sense of hearing.
Yeah, this reminds me a bit of what the original plan for this episode was, and it was going to be the Weyoun, and this would have probably still been Weyoun 5. I don't think they would have bothered with new Weyouns. Would have come to Sisko to be like, you've got to help. The founders are breeding a new race to replace the Jem'Hadar, and they're going to be even worse, and we don't believe in this. And then Sisko would do some helping until they realize, damn it, Weyoun, these weren't going to replace the Jem'Hadar, they were going to replace the Vorta, and you're just being a little bitch. And that's the kind of lie, it's like, that lie doesn't even accomplish much. Because if you told them, if in that scenario, Weyoun had just told Sisko in this incident that they're cloning a new thing to replace the Vorta, that's still just as bad to Sisko as the other thing.
Maybe, I don't know.
Episode.
I think stronger and better warriors warrants quicker action than people who might be better negotiators.
These are even better personal assistants. Watch out. Watch out. The administrative assistants are leveling up.
So, Weyoun 7 does actually lie to the founder, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Was it?
She comes in.
Did it follow as a lie of omission, or was like?
No, I think he straight up she was like, because she heard the end of what they were talking about, and she's like, "Oh, have you found Weyoun 6?" And he's like, "No, we were talking about something else." True. Or am I making that up?
No, you're right. There was. That's how it went.
Yeah, we were talking. That's another ship that we're dealing with. That's got nothing to do with Weyoun.
No.
He's gone. He's gone overboard with the ability to lie.
Yeah,
he now thinks he's a god.
So speaking of thinking things are gods, so I love the origin story of the Vorta, if it's even true. The legend of how the Vorta came to be.
You said if it's true or if they think it's true.
Well, they think it's true, but who knows if it's actually true?
Certainly not true.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. It's an origin myth.
We helped a founder, and to thank us, they
enslaved us.
Yeah, exactly.
It made me think of the Oompa Loompa.
Yeah, it is kind of.
Because, I guess, Willy Wonka discovers them and finds out that they're, being gobbled up by Vernicious Canids, whatever. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what, I will take you home with me and I'll pay you in cocoa beans because I know you like those and you can be my slaves. I mean, my factory workers.
But you have to murder children and sing about it.
That was actually just a bonus for the Oompa Loompa.
Fun fact, Vernicious Canids are also shapeshifters.
Are they?
Yeah.
Maybe
really?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, same
more
founder myth
than we thought.
Are Oompa Loompa the ancestors of Vorta?
Maybe. Yeah, they're only mentioned in Willy Wonka and the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but you actually see some in Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator.
Wait, Vernicious Canids, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying you only see Oompa Loompa. I was like, pretty sure that's not true.
And that's how you found out they're not full on changelings, but they are horrible blob creatures that can turn shapes as needed to do stuff.
Oh, so they're actually the race of aliens from Galaxy Quest.
Here you go.
No, they were using holographic emitters to hide their appearance.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, they're just squids.
Tentacle monsters.
Yeah.
And Tony Shalhoub is here for it.
In this episode.
Yeah.
In this episode. So the other nice thing that I liked, it's very similar to what we said about the Bajorans, but how when Odo's like, the only reason you think the founders are gods are because they genetically programmed you to think they were gods, and Weyoun completely logically says yes because that's what gods do.
I like that. That's a great line.
I love that.
Because you can't help but be like, yeah, I guess, yeah, what's the difference between a god and someone that tells you and, can genetically alter you?
Well, if you look even at, the Bible, God creates the angels to worship him because he's lonely. That might not be the Bible. That might be Inferno. Either way.
Is Julian Bashir God?
Yeah, I think that this... a lot of these discussions with Odo and Weyoun 6 are really interesting because Odo doesn't. So every time Odo has interacted with the Weyouns, he's always very much been like, I'm not a god. and you know, it's like, I'm just a person, like don't do that. But he's starting to understand that it doesn't matter what he knows himself to be, because these people do consider him a god. He can't, like, it's very analogous to the things that Sisko had to go through with being the emissary, where like he says, I'm just a normal person, but he can make someone's life by like giving a blessing to their wedding or whatever. Yeah. And like it's still important that he does it, even though he feels himself to not be that special. Other people really do take comfort in him when he provides it to them. And that's exactly the same thing that happens to Weyoun 6 at the end, is he's begging Odo, like, you know, Weyoun 6 is like, I don't care what you think you are. Like, I consider you a god. I did all of this for you. Like, if you just recognize that, I will die okay.
I actually, you know, again, when we first watched the scene, I even brought up, oh god, it's a little sad. It's like in Galaxy Quest when Alan Rickman is comforting the dying Thermian and finally says the line about Grabthar's hammer and means it for the first time in the whole movie.
Well, and then we get this nice scene with Odo and Nerys at the end where she's like, yeah, I mean, you all just think they're, you know, wormhole aliens, but to me, those are my gods, and like, I totally get how he feels. And I think since Odo's faith is Kira. Like, Kira is what Odo believes in. I think it's helpful to him to have her to, like, kind of offer these lessons.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say the number of times they said faith in this episode started to, like, feel like hammers against the side of my head.
I actually didn't notice, to be honest.
Yeah. I didn't either, but I believe
times.
you.
Wait, what were they saying?
Just faith.
Oh, faith.
Because it's in the title. So they said treachery once. I'm like, ugh. They said faith about 50 times, and I was like, ugh, 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 ugh.
And they also said it in the B plot a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, because we got all of the great, was it?
The Great Material Continuum.
Yeah. I kind of like that too, though, as I feel like that is true. It's sort of like money makes the world go round, but I mean, it's also just like, it's true that if you work with people and get what they need, you can sometimes get what you need. Can't always get what you want, etc. I don't know. Rolling Stones quotes.
It's a continuation of Star Trek justifying all alien religions are true except for human religions.
Yeah, because the gods are always aliens, like Apollo. Right. What?
That's actually, you're right. I forgot. Nope, our religions are also true.
Just the ancient ones.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it's really only Jesus that's bullshit.
I think the problem is like
Gene Bottomberry.
I mean, I think
Gene Longbottom.
What it comes down to is like they got to leave that one as alone as possible, because no matter what, they're gonna like. I feel like if they did come out and say, "Look, here's God, he's real, here's Jesus," it would still piss off Christian viewers.
Oh yeah,
I mean, God exists. He lives on Shakari, and you really use a starship.
We've met the devil.
That is that we have met the devil. That was not God. That was a fake God. But we have met the devil. The devil is real.
He's the god of Shakari.
But if the devil's real, though, then God has to be real, right?
In theory, yes. We just haven't met him yet.
Fair enough.
No, we might just live in a really bad universe. There's
also met a lot of people
the coin is not two-sided.
So
what did you say, Jake?
So we've met people pretending to be the devil, so we don't know if the Magic's dude is
or Ardra.
Well, let's just say Ardra, but Ardra is a charlatan.
Nope, she's the devil.
So we don't know. The other guy could also have been a charlatan.
Okay,
there's also Q. There's also literal God Q.
Here's the thing. While I know that literal God Q is like pretty much omnipotent and shit, I don't think literal God would be that fucking obsessed with Picard. Picard's not that interesting. Literal God can basically do whatever he wants. I just don't see literal God being that interested.
And if you read the Bible, the God of the Bible likes to involve himself in people's lives for reasons.
Well,
all the time.
Old Testament God.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
But not as much New Testament God.
Well, no,
and besides, Old Testament God used to like being like, why don't you kill your whole family to prove that you believe in me?
All right, that sounds like something that a more sadistic Q would get up to.
I think there's a whole continuum. They are many and one, just like God.
Don't like it.
But Odo, not a great god.
No.
Question for Caitlin. Odo.
Yes. Yeah.
Good masseuse.
Oh God.
Seemed so. I was into it.
Because I know we've seen some bad massaging on this show.
Oh, well, it was hard to say. Yeah, no. When they first when they first started that scene, I was like, oh, poor Kira. Terry Farrell left, and now they're passing on all the creepy, almost nude scenes to poor Kira.
At least it wasn't a foot massage.
Here's the thing. I think if you put Odo into one of those foot massage things and just let him be goo, that would feel great. That would be fucking awesome. I'd be all about that. But yeah, to be fair, I don't know because it was just CG. But I'm willing to bet it would be great because he can probably like heat his shit up and like shape it just right to like push into all the right spaces. And Kira looked happy, so I buy it.
It's funny.
Better than O'Brien.
Right before they cut down to his hands being just a big puddle, I was gonna say to Caitlin a joke like, "Oh man, I bet he's turned his hands into like a couple of those like, you know, fucking masseuse tools or something, like the little, you know, those weird."
Oh, the three the like 3-legged,
the 3-pronged
like,
plastic
pushy things that you just kind of like can
just
rub
turned his hands into those, and it's like, nope, he's actually just made a big goo mat.
But now that you mention it, he probably could turn his hand into a Hitachi magic wand.
Oh no, the human Sibian machine.
No.
Man.
No.
Sex with him would be amazing. He can do all kinds of shit.
But imagine if you're Odo and you're having sex with a solid, and the solid's like, you know what? Could you just be a dildo instead?
No, he doesn't have to be a dildo instead. He can be a dildo at the same time. He can do all of it. He can have one hand as a Hitachi wand while his dick is some gigantic, insane thing, if that's what you're into. He could probably double it up. He could probably give you the Klingon experience if you wanted. I'm just saying the possibilities are endless.
That's a good point.
The look on James's face is my favorite.
Yeah, James looks very sad. And here's the thing, Kira doesn't like the holosuite, but now she's got it in real life, so she has no need for holosuites.
Could you be a washing machine?
Listen, James, she asked me. I can't
help. It's all good. No, hey,
Although
I'm a guest here. I'm here by your grace alone.
From last episode, it seems like she's getting kind of used to the holosuite because her and Odo seem to like going to Vix.
I was going to say they're going to Vix, right? Ugh. I
mean, the thing is, like, say about Vix, he looks good in a tux, and she looks good in mid-century evening wear, so...
Yeah, but then you have to go listen to Vic. He's gonna call you Pally like 6 or 7 times.
Is Vic good yet? Because I remember Vic being good, but I feel like Vic hasn't been good.
Vic is trying too hard.
Vic, I think, gets better soon, but
I think we're getting to that. Yeah, I think we're getting to that.
There's some good Vic episodes that I think happen, or at least I
remember liking Vic a lot for some reason.
Me too. And I when we've been watching the Vic episodes, and every one of them like, oh no, there's another 4-hour song. Oh God. He's being creepy. He's telling Odo to be creepy.
He's eating everyone's mind.
I was just going to say, at least from now on, we have a lower song bar, so anything Vic does from here on out is going to be better.
I want the next Vic episode to be like, and this one goes out to Julian Bashir. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Want to know a really bad piece of trivia I just saw?
Yes.
So the title works for both the A and B plots because Odo took the Rio Grande, the USS Rio Grande, which translates to Great River.
Great River. Oh shit. It is,
and it's also the Great River of the material continuum.
But that is really clever on the part of whoever titled this episode.
I now feel shitty about every episode title I have come up with.
This might be the best title in all of Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have to call this episode Treachery, Faith, and the Great River.
Seriously.
Yeah, we've had every episode from now on of our podcast. You're just going to have to call Treachery, Faith, and the Great River.
I'm going to call it Treachery, Faith, and the Great Glass Elevator.
I like it.
I noticed something about the Rio Grande, and maybe this has been the case in the past and I just didn't notice it, but has there always been a door between the transporter and the cockpit of runabouts? I feel like usually the transporter is just in the cockpit behind the seats.
I don't know.
It might have been more open previously, yeah.
I feel like they've reconfigured the bridge area a bit.
Maybe it's one of those doors you can just pull out from the wall.
Like an accordion door or whatever.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I actually, interestingly, a few weeks ago, I was looking into runabouts on my own time, and
Nerd.
a thing that was never, I don't know if it's something they sort of abandoned or it was just never made clear in the show, but they were originally designed with the idea being they are ultra modular.
Oh.
In that the cockpit is its own unit. Everything behind it is its own unit. And then the nacelles and everything kind of over the roof is its own unit.
So it was like
cars.
those toy cars where you could mash 15 pieces together and get a really long car toy.
Yes,
have we seen runabouts that have a torpedo launcher on top?
They've shown it to an extent, and occasionally the stuff on the top has swapped out. But in theory, the idea is that it just, you could swap out the whole back with a completely different back that is for cargo instead of living or more sensors or whatever.
That's cool.
I know that there's one that has old fruit in the back.
Yes, there is definitely one of those. But yeah, no, I don't know if this is something that was still theoretically there and just never mentioned in the show, kind of like the captain's yacht on TNG, or if it's something they just didn't even make it into the production phase or not. But it was interesting.
You know what's crazy? We spend on Deep Space Nine so much goddamn time in runabouts, yet we've never gone aft in the runabout in Deep Space Nine, and we only
just
saw
TNG.
the runabout once in TNG, and we went aft.
Yep.
What's up with that? What's the deal?
I think when we watched that episode, Ames research dug up that is in fact the only time they show the aft section. They never got around to it on DS9.
Weird.
Probably in part because they eventually got the Defiant, and that became the go-to ship for big travels.
Go to aft. I have two unrelated notes. Let's bang off the first one first.
Sure.
Weyoun goes to sleep and has a nightmare. And when he wakes up, my first thought was, is this the first time Weyoun 6 has slept? And he had no idea what the fuck it was. Kind of like how when we saw Q sleep and assumed he had died.
So I was under they didn't make it explicit. I was expecting them to, but I had assumed the idea was that Forta don't dream normally.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I imagine they probably need to sleep. There's only so much genetic engineering you can do. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're designed to not dream. So it maybe is not the first time he's slept, but it's the first time he's dreamt.
Yeah, maybe he is actually pretty broken in some way from the genetic process. He is kind of defective, quote unquote.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the defect really, if anything, is just making him more... If anything, it's just because certain aspects of it are breaking and he's being more of a natural creature, able to sort of dream and see things from other angles.
He was kind of like when a dog has a nightmare.
Yeah, very much so.
Cool. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, and correct me if I've said this before, so we see some female changeling doing her female changeling thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they always appear in the same sort of Odo look, even in front of Dominion people who have probably never seen them in this form until we met Odo?
Maybe it's like how in musical theater the characters aren't really singing, it's just a metaphor for them discussing what's happening. Maybe that isn't how she appears, but they're showing her that way for us because that's how we recognize her.
No, it's not that.
I also just think that maybe the reason why Odo looks the way Odo does, we're assuming that they're just looking like Odo, but maybe because we know that they started, or they say at one point that they started as solids eons ago. Maybe that's just what they looked like in their solid form.
But they have Morapol's hair.
Yeah, that's the thing. Odo's hair is based on somebody he knew.
Yeah, that's true. Or maybe Morapol was just man, Odo's got a cool do.
No, actually, you know what it is? They actually did have always looked like that. The one thing they changed was the haircut. Before that, they all had kind of like mop tops.
Mohawks.
Ooh.
Yeah, because like otherwise, like if they were going to assume solid form to interact with other solids, what would they choose to look like? Vorta? Would they choose to look like Cardassians, or like do you just make yourself look like the person you're talking to make them feel more comfortable, or
that weird me the fuck out.
Yeah,
I feel like they would probably have like sets of things that they would prefer to do. Like they wouldn't want to copy someone if they could avoid it because they're below, like the they wouldn't want to look like a Vorta because the Vorta are literally below them.
Yeah, they're subservient.
But they also don't really, they also seem to have a real like abhorrence of like just the solids in general. So having a consistent form that they show to people, they would probably also not be okay with. So if they felt like they couldn't just be like angry puddles of goo yelling at people, they would probably change up their appearance every single time instead of being a consistent solid, because that's kind of to them.
From the other angle, you could say maybe they look like that because it's a very generic look. And so no one species, except maybe humans, can sort of look at them and feel like, it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of like me, but not quite. You're very smooth.
Maybe it's also like, because we know that more complicated forms take up more effort to maintain. So maybe that is just the closest thing that they can get to a humanoid form without, really straining themselves. So it's like
especially if she's already feeling sick. That's how you could explain it this time.
Yeah, well, but that's new, of course.
But I just mean like we usually see her interacting with Odo, don't we? This time this is like the first time I think. Is this the first time we've seen her in that form, not with Odo?
We saw her a few times. We saw him cuss out Weyoun and Dukat before, I think.
Okay.
All right. Well, then never mind.
Yeah, I think ultimately there's no good answer. They shouldn't. They shouldn't.
They
look
wanted
like
to
that.
have a consistent actor, and they hadn't quite figured out how the shit was gonna work.
And they've already got her
chose the makeup.
prosthetics.
Yeah,
they don't have to do extra shit there.
And they just wanted to like make it clear that this is the same species as Odo, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I look back at whoever originally said, man, we changed up the Zial actors all the time, and that was fun. We should have done it every single time. If they were going to do that with anybody, they should have done it with changelings.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I think it does allow for there to be like some characterization that wouldn't be there otherwise. And it does also kind of like, because they're now getting isolated, like it would be kind of interesting if they were always different, but now that they're isolated from the Delta Quadrant. Delta?
Yeah.
Gamma.
No,
Gamma Quadrant, thank you. That like maybe like it would start to mess with them a bit, and so like they would start taking the same form each time, and that would actually be kind of messing with them. Like they're not, it's like I'm used to being in the link and like being a mushy connected to everybody thing. I didn't even really have an individuality. Now that I can't connect with anybody, literally, like I'm developing one and I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I suddenly enjoy Cool Ranch Doritos and I'm not sure how to feel.
Oh,
yeah.
Do they like Mountain Dew also?
You should feel excellent.
My personal last observation on this episode that I kind of liked was at the end when Weyoun activated his kill switch. He was like, so even though the whole time he was like being like, oh, the founders are gods, you're a god, Odo, like you do everything for a reason and it's perfect. Like even in the face of that, he still holds his faith while he's dying. And he said like, it was supposed to be quick and painless. It's not. Like, like his kill switch is like really, really, like it's just an awful experience. And it was supposed to be painless. And despite all that, he's still like, but I love the gods.
Well, that's what's interesting is like what you find out is like, okay, I want to defect because of reason X, Y, and Z, and this. But really, what it comes down to is he wants to defect to preserve in his mind the Dominion, because like the Dominion is dying, you're separate, you can be the new Dominion.
Yeah,
You get all the Jem'Hadar as your new children.
Well, and he he wants them to be a Dominion that grows through words, not war, but still, it's like, it's really kind of great that at the end of the day, he's actually still very much a Vorta. He just has a slightly different perspective.
That's what I
hugely different.
Yeah, that's what I really liked with it, is like, you know, given a strict set of rules, how can those rules be interpreted in certain ways? And I really love stories that deal with that. So like the Weyoun 6 really might not have actually been defective. He might have just seen the rules in the way that it's like, no, Odo is the future.
Really, it's all the other Weyouns are defective because their programming makes them not see what's happening in front of their own fucking faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from the perspective of the founders,
that's what
that
they
makes... Yeah, exactly. So it's... Yes, he is defective based on what the design spec of the Weyoun Vorta should be.
Yeah.
He does not meet the prototype.
I think even the design, like, I think he's still following the design spec. He's following the programming. The programmers messed up. Like the intent of the programmers was make sure all the Weyouns are subservient to us at all costs. But they didn't say that exactly. They said be subservient to like the founders and or the Dominion. So following that programming, it's actually very logical that some of the Vorta could say, well, the Dominion's dying. When it dies, Odo is the founders, is the Dominion. And so that's why they would throw in with him. And so I think that's following the same programming. It's just not what the founders intended when they wrote it.
So do you think that they fixed it was a bug and they just fixed it for Weyoun 7?
They probably could have updated it, yeah. So they could have...
They realized, the reason he's gone rogue is because of this. We never anticipated a situation where there could be a conflict between supporting the Dominion and supporting the founders.
Yeah, because however many centuries ago they designed the programming, there was never a doubt in their mind that the founders and the Dominion would be absolute and the same.
Yeah,
right.
It's also just, as far as, if we look at this as an almost religious schism, it's funny how often a schism forms over not major differences of opinion, but just a small difference in interpretation, which creates a whole new offshoot of a faith.
Do you think Weyoun 6 nailed a bunch of things to the church door?
Yeah, no, basically, it's all metal, so he actually was just a magnet, and then he ran away.
He also rang the doorbell before he ran away.
Yeah,
he giggled.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Damar!
Ditch.
You drunk prick! I hate you.
I do love that Damar is always drinking now.
Always, in
they've
everything.
really committed
He's
to
so
this,
unhappy.
This alcoholism.
Have they said the Canar for Damar line yet?
Yes, I think they did.
I think that's when they were still occupying the station.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I always appreciated that, and I liked and Damar like actively corrupting Weyoun 7 and somehow being successful in it. Like he's like, hey, why don't you drink with me? Or was that him? Or was that Damar trying to kill him?
Oh,
that's a good question.
Why not both?
I kept thinking he was trying to poison Weyoun 7 because he clearly killed Weyoun 5.
They looked into it. It was fine.
All my best people determined I did not kill him.
Yeah.
We brought in the judge and everything.
Do you think that Cardassian lawyer, Jake's favorite Cardassian lawyer, was like, as you can see, Damar did not kill him?
Well, no, he would have been because it's his job to lose, so he would have been the one arguing for Weyoun was murdered.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of murdered, I feel like we've beaten this dead horse, am I right?
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, if you like what you heard and you want to hear more, not about horse beating, but about Star Trek.
Might be about horse beating.
What?
I make no promises.
Oh, no.
Well, fine. Maybe a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Either way, you can join us every week. We release new episodes on Thursday. It's usually first thing. Chris schedules that shit to go off Thursday morning most of the time. So join us. You can subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. We're on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. You can also check us out. If you can't wait between episodes to have more interaction with our podcast, you can check out Facebook. We're there. You can search for A Star to Steer Her By. We are at SSHB Podcast on Twitter and Tumblr, or you can visit our website, sshbpodcast.com. Next week, we're going to talk about, two more episodes of Deep Space Nine. We're going to talk about Once More Unto the Breach and the Siege of AR-558. Can't wait to see what that's about. As for this week, I have been Caitlin.
I have been Jake.
This has been Chris.
This has been Ames.
I'm James.
Yay!
Yay, James.
Re mi fa so re mi ti. My voice is real bad today. Do re mi fa so. It's not as fun if you guys don't do it too.
Dr. Zayas.